Hey everybody, it's Chris Eads, known online as Wootini, here with another one of my gay gamer video podcasts. I wanted to start this week with a couple of quick movie reviews. AMC finally did get tickets. They just weren't selling them in advance of a week or two, like some of the other big openings. But they did eventually get tickets for Suspiria, so I was able to see that. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the AMC where I saw it, it was playing at like 2 AMCs in New York City. And the one that I went to go see it at, which is my preferred theater, I like it, it's comfortable, it's nice, it's big. But for whatever reason, they ran it with Spanish subtitles. I don't know why. And it's really a testament to how much I enjoyed the film that I was able to enjoy it even with the distracting subtitles. Because you could kind of ignore them if you're focusing on the movie and like sort of try not to see them popping up on the bottom of the screen. But because the movie is set in Germany, sometimes they spoke German, and that was actually subtitled, like the proper movie, like with a special font and everything, with a drop shadow, and it was like... So that bumped the Spanish subtitles to the top of the screen, as usual, which was on top of people's faces, which you then could not ignore. It was super annoying. I even went out at one point to the customer service desk, which thankfully was right next to this theater, and I was like, what's up with the Spanish subtitles? And he was like, they're supposed to be there. I was like, but the film is in English, why are there Spanish subtitles? And he was like, it's an independent film, that's how they gave it to us, so that's how we're showing it. And I'm like, you're an idiot. And it's funny because AMC has like, you know, the luxury recliners and the big IMAX screens, and they're all like, thank you for coming, and they, you know, everything's all fancy, and they've got like a bar and like restaurant food and whatever. Sometimes you forget that AMC is just another theater chain, and they will have problems just like any theater chain. You know, marks on the screen, things screening with weird subtitles, or with no sound for the opening credits. They fuck up too. So, but I enjoyed Suspiria, even with the subtitles. I think I would have enjoyed it more without, because then I could have gotten drawn into the movie more. I appreciated it because it wasn't a direct remake, so I wasn't bored. It took the bones of the original Dario Argento film, the dance school, the witches, all the character names, and the general characters, but then it did something completely different with it. Well, not completely, but mostly, like, different with it. And it was just like, it was a very cool, it was set in the 70s, and it looked like a 70s arty European horror movie, and I just got really into that whole aesthetic, you know. And then it turns completely gonzo at the end, and I was like, yay! But in a completely different way than the original one did. So, if you are intrigued, check it out. I can't recommend it to everybody because it is very specific in what it is. But it was good, and not a boring remake. Because the other movie that I saw had a trailer before it for the Aladdin remake, which annoys me because Disney keeps doing these live-action remakes of their cartoons, and I don't understand why, except to just get more money out of people. There's nothing wrong with the Beauty and the Beast cartoon. They didn't need to make a creepy live-action remake of it, because that's the problem, it's creepy. And now they're doing Aladdin, and it's just the same movie. It's like the same script, just in live-action for no reason. Although the one that really weirds me out is The Lion King, because there's actually no people in that, so it's just a CGI Lion King, basically, done very realistically, and not cartoony, I suppose. I don't know, which is going to be weird. There's nothing wrong with the cartoons. Stop messing them up. But I saw it before The Nutcracker in the Four Realms, which is not really a remake. It's inspired by the short story and the ballet, and then there's also some elements from Fantasia that Disney brought into this, from the Nutcracker Suite part of Fantasia. And, but it's its own thing. So it wasn't like a remake. But because I can see 3D and IMAX movies with my A-List subscription, I decided to check this out in 3D. I wouldn't normally have gone to see this at all, but because it was in 3D, I said, let me go check it out in 3D. And ooh, I'm glad I did. Because the story is super predictable and just there to hang the beautiful visuals on. And the visuals are stunning. Like, the set design and the costumes and the effects, mostly, are gorgeous. Like, they create this beautiful world. It's really just visually over the top and stunning and wonderful. And it was especially so in 3D. And it was very clearly meant to be seen in 3D because there's a lot of shots that use depth. There's things like, an owl flying out of the screen, or a sword poking at you, or, like, there's elements that clearly the director, or directors as it turns out, I don't know what that's all about, I meant to look that up, they meant it to be in 3D because there's a lot of depth to the images and stuff, so 3D is the way to go. And I also would say, if you're planning on seeing it, definitely see it in 3D because it makes it look even better. I mean, in 2D it'll look pretty, but in 3D it looks gorgeous. As for games, this weekend I found out that there's a demo for Tetris Effect. And so I had heard things about it. I'd heard people saying, ooh, this is so cool. So I downloaded that and I dusted off my PSVR to give it a shot. I was a little concerned because I'm like, oh god, Tetris in VR, like, how does that work? The blocks coming at you or what, But it turns out it's literally just a Tetris board, and then there's like 3D VR imagery depending on the world that you're in, like undersea or whatever, and like there's stuff like a whale floating around or something. And occasionally, like, something will float, like, really close to your field of vision, and, you're like, ooh. But, for the most part, it's just Tetris on a screen in front of you with some 3D stuff around you. I mean, even the menus aren't very, like, VR. It's all very flat. It's clearly a game that was meant to be just played, and they added a little bit of 3D VR to the backgrounds so they could say it was enhanced for PSVR. But there was one bit in the Tetris Effect mode, not the regular mode, the adventure mode or whatever it's called, in the Effect mode, it changes the game as you're playing it, so sometimes the ghost images disappear, which makes it a little trickier to get them in line. It's just not as easy, so you have to slow down and pay more attention. Sometimes the pieces become fragmented into different shapes, and that's completely crazy, and you're like, wah! But then one of the modes that it changed to challenge you was, for a period of time, suddenly it was in your face. Like, it went up close, and all of a sudden the Tetris board is like right there, and you're like, ah! But that's about the best use of the VR that I saw during my time with the demo. Because it's basically just Tetris. Except the music and the psychedelic imagery and stuff, it's more like Luminous. But I have Luminous, so I don't feel like I need to have another one in VR. Because if the VR was a stronger element, I would be tempted to pick it up, because then it might be worth it, because it's fun to play it in VR. But the VR element is really just kind of an add-on, so I was unimpressed, and I'm not, like, rushing out to buy this one. It's something that I would totally buy, like, later on if there was, like, a flash sale, and it was, like, half off. I could be tempted. But, yeah. The big thing I wanted to talk about this week is I actually finished Spider-Man. I know, right? After last week's episode, I had a good long session with the game where I thought I finished it. I thought, I'd wrapped up the whole storyline with Martin Lee and Feast and the whole thing and the Devil's Breath and everything, and I had the final, what felt like a final boss battle, and then it was like, but no. Remember that other thread that's been running through the game? That hasn't been wrapped up yet, and now that's going to take over the whole game and become a whole extra Act 3. And I was like, wait, what? And at first I thought I was just going to complain about how I don't like Act 3 as compared to 1 and 2, but I can actually talk about finishing it because I pushed through and did all the story missions without any side stuff on the side, because Act 3 changes the game completely, and it's no longer fun, it's more of a chore. It's no fun exploring New York City. Web swinging through the city is kind of a pain in the ass, because now there's snipers and rocket launchers on like every other building, and they're just shooting at you, and it's like, I'm not going looking for that pigeon because people will be shooting at me the whole time. Like, not happening. So, that was irritating. So I literally just like pushed through and did the next story mission. Occasionally there'd be like a crime that would happen, or like something where I was like, alright, let me stop and do that on my way. But after a couple of times where I would try to do it, and it was like really hard, because it, you know, it's like, this is the end game, so they're like really challenging you now. And the fights got really, really hard, and I'm just like, it's like, I'd have like this much health left, and I'm just like, now I have to go do the main mission. And it would restore my health, but still I was like, I don't want to like get beat up on my way to an important story mission. I need to be focused on that. So I basically pushed through and did all the story missions. They still kept throwing in the occasional stealth, but got through it. And finished the game. Act 3 feels like it's completely tacked on. It does not... The story kind of like stutters, and then it just feels like they finished the game and went, oh, that's not long enough, let's do this, and we'll add this to it. Because it just suddenly, like, it tries to tie in all these elements from before, and it just kind of feels a little messy and sloppy, and all of a sudden, the great story and emotional arcs that were happening for the first 2 acts kind of get jumbled up and messy. So I feel like it didn't... Spider-Man did not stick the landing. There's an amazingly wonderful scene with Peter and Mary Jane at the end. It's like, that relationship and storyline, they did really, really well. There was something that happened at the end that I saw coming from a mile away, and it didn't make... I know a lot of people are like, oh, I cried at the end of Spider-Man, it was so sad, and I'm just like, no, it irritated me. Like, I was like, why did you do that? Like, it didn't make me sad, it made me irritated. And then there's another element that clearly sets up the sequel, which I will totally play, because overall, I still enjoyed Spider-Man. And now that I finished the story, I can go back and do the other side things to try to... I'm not going to 100% the game, because I'm not going to be able to pull off all those challenges, but I have gotten a bunch more trophies, but they are not, you know, like, there's no more snipers and rocket launchers, so it's a much nicer experience getting around the city to try to collect those last couple things here and there. However, I did do a little bit of that, but then the following day I went and I picked up Red Dead Redemption. I decided to explore the Old West instead of ancient Greece. We'll see how that goes. So come back next week, and I will talk about that once I've had a chance to play it. I couldn't play it too much last night because it took like an hour or so in order to install the whole thing. I'll bitch about that and then talk about my first impressions of the game next time. So, see you then. Bye!